All cell phones are completely off. There are 3 emergency exits, one to house left, one to house right, and one behind the stage to your left. Thank you for joining us.
So, hello everyone. Welcome to the theater of the 14th Street Y. We're happy to collaborate and host the new Shul. My name is Hanan, and I worked in the past a lot with Misha and with the new Shul, and now I also work here at the 14th Street Y. I'm the director of Laba, the artist fellowship that we run here. And this is a very thrilling partnership that we're doing here tonight. Laba, every year in Laba we have about 10 or 12 artists that come together to study Jewish text, and then each one creates a new piece in the end, and the fellows usually do after that a lot of other stuff with us and a part of the things that happen at the Y. So here with us we have Damien Olsen and Daniel Hasid, which both were Laba Fellows in the previous year, in the year of Taboo. And they will be also creating art with us. And this year our theme is night, and we have a few night representatives and more Taboo representatives and different representatives. And so welcome everyone, and Misha.
Toda Rabba Hanan. Hanan, it's so nice to do stuff with you. I'll just start with that. Hanan worked with me a lot at the School for Creative Judaism and at the Shul. And since he became the king of Laba, New York, I have seen him less. So nice to hang. Yes. Mabruk. Yes. Where should I start? Welcome to the Kumah Festival. For those of you who, you may or may not know that you've landed at the Kumah Festival. The Kumah Festival is this thing that we do once a year at the New Shul. This is our 4th year doing it. And it's devoted to works that bring together faith, art, and politics. Yes, there are some, in that Venn diagram, we search for things that hit somewhere in that Venn diagram. This year we're talking about war and peace. And this is the final event of the festival. And I just want to bring us to this place because I think some of the people here, I know the 2 people in the back there, Judy and Susan, have been in all of the events, and I think there are others who have been to almost all of them. But I want to just kind of lead us from the end of the festival, from the beginning of the festival to now. It's still Shabbat Shalom. And our festival began right before Shabbat, and then we brought in Shabbat together. We had this beautiful musical celebration, and what happened there for me was that I learned that in the midst of war and this internal suffering that we're experiencing, there are islands of peace that we can create. That's what that evening was for me. That evening at this crazy motorcycle depot in Greenpoint, it was an island of peace that we created. Yeah. So I learned that we're able to do that even in the midst of these trying times. The next thing was the Israeli-Palestinian Memorial Day ceremony, in which we saw, I was thinking about the question, how do we do that? How do we create islands of peace, or how do we create peace? The answer that I found there was we have to start with the people who were most influenced by this. All of us here, we're definitely influenced by this war, but not like people who have suffered like that, who've lost their son or their daughter or their sibling. And being there with those people really was a beginning. It was a beginning of how to make that. And then when we were just on Thursday night, we watched this play. Here there are blueberries. Yeah, I think a bunch of you were there. And we saw this, it's a play essentially about these pictures. When you really look at Nazi officers and soldiers from Auschwitz, you just look at their face. That's the main thing you get there. And what I learned was that first of all, there's a big draw. There's something strange drawing us to look at these faces. there's an obsession almost. The lead character is this woman who finds this photo album of Nazis from Auschwitz, and she's obsessed with it, and she's drawn to it. And so there's something drawing us to these faces. Something is drawing us to these faces, and it's like looking in the mirror. When you look at these faces, it's like looking in the mirror, because you're constantly asking yourself, what am I looking at? And who am I in response to this face? Our evening tonight is about faces. You'll see, we're going to together paint faces, two faces in particular, yeah, of two rather different gods, yeah, which the Kabbalists did a long time ago. What we are going to do in just a minute, when we start, is we're going to connect with this very special part of the Zohar, right? Everybody knows the Zohar, yeah, is that a word people are familiar with? Yeah, it's like the central text of Kabbalah. And in the Zohar, there is something called the Laba, the Great Gathering. And what happens there is that all these people, 10 rabbis, gather in a time of impossible difficulty. Yeah? I could describe it to you a little bit, just to kind of bring us into the space. There have been wars going on non-stop for decades. There have been Jews being terribly oppressed and even murdered in certain cases. The teachers of these rabbis have been tortured to death, and these rabbis have decided that they have to change this. Now, they don't have political power. Really, this, in a way, this entire piece, the Idra, it has nothing to do with politics. In a way, it's not. But it has a tremendous influence on politics, because what they're trying to do is to shift what's happening in the divine realm, yeah, in order to create an opening for the human realm. It's a crazy thing to do, there's no doubt, right? There's no doubt that there is some type of insanity involved in this attempt, right? And on the other hand, there's something very deep and important which has to do with the fact that these people believe that they are capable of doing such a thing. Because they can't see face to face, they're living in a time when nobody's looking each other in the face. There's an incapability, right, just like today, for us to see another's face, except on our terms, right? And so they have to paint the face. They have to paint a face. They are going to start with God, because they know that when human beings are not looking each other in the face, neither are the divine beings. Yeah, neither are the different facets of God. The different faces of God are not turning towards one another, and we need to create a fix for this. Okay? Before we start, I want to share one more little story. I'm sorry I'm going on a little bit. But it has to do with what I would like to ask of all of you this evening, okay? Because you look like you came to a play, and you didn't really come to a play, you came to something a little bit different, okay? About, what was it? Must have been something like 2010. I put on a play just a few blocks down from here at Theater for the New City. It was called Deathscape. And in the play, I hired this NASA scientist who worked on sound and space to create a soundtrack. And this is what he tells me. Yeah, Rob, he says to me, the music is going to respond to the brain waves of the people in the audience. And I say, okay, cool, it's a weird play, this will fit right in. But I don't really exactly believe that to be the case, that this is going to impact, that what you're thinking and feeling and going through is going to actually change the music. And during rehearsals, it all sounds basically the same, or different, but not in recognizable ways. And then on opening night, in the climax of the play, where the main character kind of loses it and comes very, very close to death, the entire soundtrack goes silent. There's supposed to be a lot of music in that moment, but the music just goes out. For long enough for me to think that there's a problem with the sound system. It was probably 2.5 seconds. But after that happened, and then the music kind of slowly came back in. And after that happened, I believed Rob that this is actually connected to what people are going through. Yes, Martin understands what I'm talking about here. What I would like to ask of you is that you conjure the insane part of you that really believes that tonight we might be able to shift a little tiny something in the constitution of this world in this moment. Yeah? That we're not just sitting here and we're not in despair entirely, but that we actually bring ourselves to a place of action, of doing. Yeah? That's the Kabbalistic act. And that's what I invite you to do this evening. Our beginning of the Ida. We're not reading. We don't have time to read the entire thing. It's long, but we do have time to go through several different chapters. Okay, so the first part is a prologue, and what happens in the prologue is that the rabbis gather in the forest, and Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, the head rabbi, to whose gravesite Jews go in ridiculously large numbers on Laba Omer. This is our kind of Laba Omer night. He opens, and he invites them and explains what they're about to do. That's the prologue. You'll see the artistic exploration of this is gonna start with the prologue and then move into chapter 1. And chapter 1 is the description of the painting of the face of what's called Atika Kadisha. I'll invite you to say those words. Atika Kadisha. Atika Kadisha means the ancient holy one. Yeah? This is the God from whom everything, all life, all energy flows from. This is the source of all. That's Atika Kadisha. And they start with describing through verses from Scripture. They're going to describe how that flow takes place. And they're going to describe the skull and the forehead and the ears and the hair and the beard. There's a long description of the beard, all these different pieces, and how that flow, which is complete and total compassion, how that moves into the world. That's chapter 1. Ready? Yeah. Good. One warning I'll give you is that in the 3rd chapter, there will be a little bit of participation invoked from the audience. So prepare yourself now. Yes. the companions came in the presence of Rabbi Shimon. And they were Rabbi Elazar, his son, Rabbi Abba, Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Yossi ben Yaakov, Rabbi Yitzchak, Rabbi Chizkiah, son of Rav, Rabbi Chia, Rabbi Yossi, and Rabbi Yeisa. Extending hands to Rabbi Shimon, raising fingers above, they entered the field among the trees and sat down. Rabbi Shimon rose and offered his prayer. He sat down among them and said, "Let each one place his hands on my potent breast." They placed their hands, and he grabbed them.
ידים יהבו לרבי שמעון, ואצבען זקפו לילה. קם רבי שמעון וצלץ אלותי, יתיר וגבהו ואמר, כל חד ישב בידו
He opened, saying, "Cursed be the man who makes a carved or molten image, a craftsman's handiwork."
אמרו האיש אשר יעשה פסל, אשר יעשה פסל, אשר יעשה
They were silent. They heard a sound, and their knees knocked together. Which sound? The sound of the angels on high assembled. Rabbi Shimon said, "I have heard your sound, and I am afraid. But for us, the matter depends on love, as is written, "Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha," you shall love Adonai your God. And it is also written, "I have loved you, ahavticha," says Adonai. Chapter 1. It has been taught in the concealment of the book. The ancient of ancients, hidden of the hidden, was prepared. That is, he existed and did not exist. Did not actually exist, yet was revealed. No one knows him, for he is more ancient than the ancients. But in his revelation he is known. like an elder of elders, more ancient than the ancients, more concealed than the concealed, known by his signs, yet unknown. Master of white, his garment and sparkling face, seated on a throne of flames to subdue them. Through 400,000 worlds, the whiteness of the skull of his head spreads. And from the radiance of this white, the righteous inherit 400 worlds in the world that is coming, as is written, 400 shekels of silver. In the skull dwell 120 million worlds, moving within it, supported by it. From this skull trickles dew to the exterior one. The dead are awakened in the world that is coming, as is written. My head is filled with dew. From that dew, holy ones of the highest are sustained. And it is the manna ground for the righteous in the world that is coming. The appearance of that dew is white, like a crystal stone, in which all colors are seen. Like a crystal stone, in which all colors are seen, as is written. Its appearance was like the appearance of crystal. The whiteness of the skull radiates in 13 directions. In 4 directions on one side, and 4 directions from his face, in 4 directions on the other side, and one side above the skull, that is upward. From this, the length of his face extends 3,700,000 worlds. These worlds are called Erech Abayim, the long face of compassion. The Ancient of Ancients is called Aricha Be'anbu, the elongated face. And the exterior one, Zeir Anpin, the small face, the elder, Holy of Holies of Holies. When Zeir Anpin, the small face, gazes at Aricha Anpin, the long face, all below is restored and healed. The hair. Every single lock of hair has 410 strands of hair. equivalent to Kadosh, holy. And every single strand glistens in 410 worlds. And every single world is concealed and hidden away, unknown to anyone but him. 13 tresses of hair appear on either side of the skull toward his face, and within them the hair begins to part. And from the parting of the hair shines a path by which the righteous are illumined in the world that is coming, as is written. The path of the righteous is like a gleaming light, shining ever brighter until full day. Ve'orach tzadikim ke'or noga, holech va'or ad nechon hayom. כל אורחות אדוני חסד ואמת לנוצרי בריתו ועדתו.
כאור נוגה הולך ואור עד נכון היום. כל אורחות אדוני חסד ואמת לנוצרי בריתו ועדתו.
Eyes of the whitehead are different from other eyes. They are like the eyes of a fish. There is no lid on his eyes. Why? Because it is written, behold, he neither sleeps nor slumbers, the guardian of Israel.
שומר ישראל.
If this eye closed for one moment, none could endure. Therefore it is called open eye, supernal eye, holy eye, eye of watchfulness, eye that neither sleeps nor slumbers, that is protector of all, eye sustaining all. That's the end of chapter 1, folks. Now, I know some of that was kind of hard to follow, which is the case with Kabbalah, but lucky for us, we have Rabbi Abby Stein to explain everything to us.
Even though we're planning to be here a few weeks, or according to the Zohar, 13 years that it took Rabbi Shimon to learn the basics of Kabbalah. Bear with me for a second. Askin esidis edem heimenis shleimus echedres edem malka kadisha. Askin asidis edem malka. Da isidas adizier amnepim. Vatika Kadisha Vachakalta Buchin Kadishim Asayan Lesada Be'adei. This is the meal, the holy meal, the meal of a perfect faith, of a higher faith and belief. This is the meal of Ze'er Anpin, the small faith, the smaller faith. For a second there, I saw two faces, and then they got all mangled together. Maybe that was just me. This moment, actually, that we're standing in the week, Sudash Lishit, it's the moment of the third meal. What I just chanted very briefly, if it felt like that was taking too long, I was going like probably sped up times 10 for the way it is done. But it's from a piyut, it's the opening of a poem by the Ari, of Yitzchok Luria, or by Isaac Luria, considered the father of modern Kabbalah. If the Zohar is the quintessential, the core text of Kabbalah, in the Idra is the core of the core, the Ari is the core commentator, and the person who actually took a lot of everything you just saw, and you were like, okay, this seems like very cool art, but what is actually going on here? The Ari was taking a lot of that and bringing that into life, into day-to-day life. And this moment, the three Shabbat meals represent different versions, different faces of God. The morning meal of Shabbat is Atika Kadisha, what we have just been doing the most of chapter 1, was the Holy Ancient One, or also representing Ari Champin, the long face. I'm going to get to that in a second. When it comes to Sudash Lishit, a moment that is also called Ra'avad Ravin. In Hebrew that would be Ratzon, the desire of all desires. At that moment we take that small face, the Ze'er Anpin, it joins up with the ancient Holy One, with the long face, it all becomes one. But let me come down for a second to earth. And I was speaking with Rabbi Misha a few days ago, and we were talking about how we explain all of this. And I actually think that Kabbalah, and specifically the talk about these different faces, are the Mekubalim. The Kabbalists trying not to make things more mystical, but quite the opposite. Trying to bring it down to earth. They were looking around in the world, and they were like, okay, this is like really cool and amazing. They were looking on the physical world, and they were like, yes, we can touch everything, but why and how? And then we get all the mystical world, but we're like, it's all like up there. And we need something to bridge it. We need something to help us understand. And in many ways, at least I personally see Kabbalah, and specifically the Idra, as a moment of coming together and sitting down, and now we're going to make sense of everything. Arich Anpin, or the Holy Ancient One, that we have been talking at the beginning, represents in many ways something that is a lot harder to grasp for us. The Zohar also calls it Alma Iskasya, the hidden world. The Atika Kadisha, the Holy Ancient One, is a lot of words that a lot of us hear and we check out. Holy, Ancient, One, what are you talking about? It's up there. But a big part of Ze'er Anpin, the smaller face, is starting out with something you understand. Envisioning a divine being that represents you. Envisioning a world that you can relate to. And what the Mekubalim, what the Kabbalists are telling us, that when you really lean into that, you can take that and then you can understand everything. Chapter 2, as we move into it, is going to be a lot about colors. But it's very easy to look at this, and I remember when I personally started studying Kabbalah for the first time, I was like, okay, really cool. Now, in addition to believing in God and in divine and the Shekhinah and all the different things, I also have to believe that all of that has colors. But in reality, these colors are clothing that we put onto it. One of my mentors used to say, use an example of a stained glass window. If If you go into a church in the middle of the day or a synagogue with stained windows and you see the shine of the sun coming through, and it looks like it's a red sun, like a green sun, like a black sun. The sun is the same, but our perception of it has gotten color through those colors. But the result also is that you can actually look at it. If you try to look at the sun directly, you're going to go blind. But you can look on the colors. Now, we're not reading through everything, so we don't have the part where the rest of the body has been colored. We're going to focus on the eyes being colored. But that's going to be the next part. So imagine you're trying to take, we're focused on the Erampin, but the same goes for every face and vision of the divine. And we're adding our own features up on the screen or in our minds, but we're focused on the colors, and that way we can actually grasp it. We can actually look at it, because it comes down to us. The Talmud calls that Debrat Torah Kelashon B'nei Adam. The Torah uses words that people understand. The Zohar, believe it or not, is trying to use words in a very heavy medieval Aramaic that people could understand. And that's what chapter 2 is going to be about. I will be back for the end.
Thank you, Matthew. So, Laba. So far we've painted one face, and now we're gonna paint another. You guys have to imagine that there was another face painted. The first one that you saw is all white, and the second one, the smaller face, the one we can relate to, as Abby explained, is all red. And that's the face, not of compassion, but of judgment. All right? We're only going to read some of the part of the description of the eyes. And here we go. When his eyes open, they are beautiful to behold, like doves, red, black, and green, as implied by what is written, like doves. From these colors that are revealed, emerge 7 eyes of supervision, issuing from the black of the eye. From the red emerge 7 runners close to the left eye, flashing with fire. From the north, linked to spread throughout the world to expose the ways of the wicked. As is written, the eyes of Adonai range over the whole earth. From the green, emerge 7 splendors to the south, spreading throughout the world to expose deeds as is written, for his eyes are upon a person's ways, to know the deeds of all human beings.
כי עיניו על דרכי איש וכל צעדיו יראה. כי עיניו על דרכי איש וכל צעדיו יראה. על דרכי איש וכל צעדיו יראה. עיניו על דרכי איש וכל צעדיו.
The first color is red. Red within red, comprising and enveloping all reds, which in its presence are invisible. Around that red circles a single black thread, encompassing it. The second color, black, like a stone emerging from the abyss in the great sea, once in 1,000 years. As this stone is about to come forth, a violent shaking overwhelms the sea, and the sounds of the sea and its boiling waves is soon heard by the great fish called Leviathan, and this stone emerges from the abyss. Rolling through the turbulent sea, and then ejected. It is so black that all blacks are masked by its presence. Such is the black of the eye, a black comprising and developing all other blacks. Around that black circles a single red thread, encompassing it. The third color, green of greens, comprising and enveloping all greens. Around that green circle two threads. Red thread to one side and black thread to the other, encompassing that green. When the white revolves and the eyes are bathed, when the white revolves and the eyes are bathed, when the white revolves and the eyes are bathed, all those colors subside and sink below, and none are seen except that white shining from the Ancient of Days. And all those below shine from it. It has been taught. In these eyes dwell two tears. When the Holy of Holies wishes to have compassion on Israel, he sheds two tears to be sweetened in the great sea. Which sea? The sea of wisdom. They are bathed in the whiteness of the bubbling spring, issuing from great wisdom. And he has compassion upon Israel. Abby's going to set us up for the last piece.
We're coming home. So, am I allowed to scare everyone a tiny bit? There's an actual location in the Galil, the north of Israel, that traditionally, according to the Ari, according to Rabbi Zikler that I mentioned earlier, is Ma'arat Ha'idra. It's the cave where all of this was happening. Rabbi Shimon was sitting with the students, and literally there's still to this day, what you believe or don't believe is besides the point, but there's these benches and where people still indicate where each of them were sitting. And Rabbi Shimon was sitting there. But something that is also very interesting about that is that right outside of that cave, there are 3 graves of 3 Tanaim. 3 of the 10 people mentioned at the beginning, in the prologue, at the beginning of the Idra, are buried right there, according to tradition, next to the cave where the Idra happened. The Zohar says that before they finished the Idra, 3 of them had passed away with something that is called Nshika, passing away from the kiss of God. Euphemism to a version of passing out from purifying your mind or reaching a form of understanding of the world where basically the difference between being alive physically or not is all the same and you just pass out from that. That is what's happening. So don't try this at home, I guess would be like a Kabbalist like disclaimer here. But the idea of the Idra, the idea of everything that we're watching is to try to understand the world in a way where you have purified. It sounds very Buddhist to some extent, but reaching a form of understanding the world that transcends everything. What we're going to have for the wrapping up part, we're having a version of that. We have Shabbat. Shabbat is about to enter. That's what we're going to have in the final part. And there's a description here of something that I think is intentionally vague. Could either refer to Shabbat. Shabbat is coming in adorned in her glorious clothes. It could also be referring to the Shekhinah, or both at once. But that's going to be the final part of Rabbi Shimon and everyone getting distracted from what they were doing and focusing for a minute on Shabbat, and then he comes in kind of like to talking about something called the Yichud, talking about the feminine and the masculine coming together, which we'll hear in a minute. But I want to share one final thing. For those of us who spend a lot of time in Israel, but even if not, if you come from a traditional background, you might have heard of a custom on Laba, on a holiday, which we're celebrating today and happens exactly next week, where people do bonfires. It's like the thing that it is known for. And that comes from a tradition that as Rabbi Shimon was teaching, both this Idra and even more so the last one on the day that he passed away, there was a fire of God burning outside the whole time. And I'm glad that we're doing this at the end. We're going to do like Havdalah, and like to me it just felt like the last part is ending as Shabbat was about to enter, and we're going to end up with walking out Shabbat with a flame and with that moment of fire.
This is the part I warned you, in which there may be some audience participation. And this is where the different faces of the divine are going to come together. As Shabbat was about to enter, he was creating spirits, demons, and whirlwinds. And before he completed them, she came in her adornments and sat before him. When she did so, he left those creatures and they were not completed. Since she was sitting with the king, and they joined face to face, who would dare to come between them? Who would approach them? When they united, they were sweetened by one another. A day in which all are sweetened. Consequently, judgments were sweetened by one another. And those above and those below were harmoniously arranged. It has been taught in the concealment of the book. Once the totality of Adam had been sweetened above, the holy body, male and female, they united a third time, and sweetness of all emerged. And worlds above and below were healed. From here, the world above and below was completed. Worlds embrace, merging with one another, becoming one body. Since they are all one body, Shekhinah above, Shekhinah below. The Blessed Holy One above, the Blessed Holy One below. Spirit is drawn forth, entering one body, and throughout all of them, nothing is seen except one. Echad. Holy, holy, holy is Adonai of hosts. The whole world is full of his glory. For all is one body. I invite whoever is not like for Haftarah? There we go. Hey, if you don't have a sprig of mint, thank you. Come on up, come on up. הנה אל ישועתי אפתח ולא אפחד, כי יוסיף לשמחתי אדוני ויהי לי ישועה. אדוני ישועה לעמך וירכתך הסלע. ליהודים הייתה אורה ושמחה וששון ויקר, כן תהיה לנו. כוס ישועות אשא ובשם אדוני אקרא. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם, גואל בלי הגפן, גואל בלי הגפן. In summer camp, we used to do this. Holy, holy. Smell your mint. this war end. Chalas. No more of this. Shavua Tov, everybody. Have a beautiful week. Thank you so much for really bringing yourselves into this weird evening and rolling with our crazy improvisations. Toda Rabah. Shavua Tov. Shavua Tov.